What's going on today, Generals? It's Nick again here from the BI Edge. So, what I'm looking at here today is I'm looking at the total number of operator leases by current status. So, what this is we are now scaling the Western Australian petroleum industry here. Um, so, what I've got here is I've got Power BI desktop open again. I have my three data sets here from WAPIMS, which is the Western Australia petroleum based government data portal where I've retrieved these data sets. And I've linked them up together, as you could see before with the schemas. And this is the dashboard here. We've got three down here. And what we're going to be discussing in this video is we're just going to have a bit of a look at what operators have the most number of leases here in this first dashboard. In the second dashboard, we're going to have a look at the total registered holders, so by expiry year. So basically, what that's going to do there is we're going to see, um, you know, how many on here is we've got number of fields by basin in Western Australia. Okay, and we can have a look at the status on that. As you can see there, it's pretty evident that Northern Carnarvon and Perth has the most. Okay, so what we're going to do to start off with is we're going to come over here and I'm going to view this full screen. Okay, cool. So starting off here on our first dashboard, total number of operator leases by current status. Okay, so this is the lease that each petroleum operator in Western Australia has here. So if I want to look at, we need to whack on a couple of filters here. So we've got a lot of missing data in this set of 78 leases. So I'm just going to address that first. So we'll click on that. Okay, and obviously I've got an interactive dashboard on here, so I can come down, have a bit of a look, and go, okay, well, these not entered leases, when were they? And you can see that historically their rig release years were some time ago, apart from these ones here, and we know that they're Brew Energy that has these particular leases because that was the borehole operator, so it was most likely a Brew Energy based lease. Okay, these are offshore here because you can see by the code. So if I go, um, you know, not on, we'll go, yes, it is offshore. Okay. And then if I go not entered, um, I can come down here and have a bit of a look. Okay. So that sort of gives us a bit of understanding there as to sort of what's going on. But to start off with, I'm just going to go to active. So current active leases. Okay, so we can see that even our bigger players in the market here have only got sort of one active lease at the moment, and that's because when analysing petroleum-based leases, there's a lot of players within the market that have renewed base leases because they just keep renewing the lease over decades and decades because there is still a lot of petroleum or whatever the commodity is on the particular site, gas, to be extracted from the ground. So we can see here that BHP in the Northwest Shelf, okay, so they're all offshore. A lot of this stuff's offshore, not a lot of data on that. Um, and you can have a bit of a look down here as well. Okay, so that sort of gives us a bit of an understanding there around how renewed works, surrendered, which players have surrendered their leases over time. Okay, and I can go down here and have a look at the lease sites. And Home Energy was an older company. And then we go down here, Triangle Energy had one here, offshore Brew Energy, and so forth. Okay, so I can just sort of scroll through those leases and have a look. Okay, so some of you might think, oh, why is there the same lease here for multiple times? And that's just because there's a different site on the particular lease that the operator is drilling at. More times than not, or they've drilled on a different part of the lease in different years, which you can sort of see here. Rig release year and spud kickoff year, that's the drilling aspect of it. So that's how that works. All right, we'll go offshore yes to start off with. Okay, so what about offshore no next? Okay, so we're looking at not offshore and we want to have a look at Chevron's leases here over time. we can come back here, okay? We can see that L10 and L1H are 4, okay? Then I can go, well, who was that drilled by? Oil Drilling and Exploration Proprietary Limited seem to have a bit of a strong relationship there with Chevron, okay? And, I can sort of have a look at the years there. So I can see, okay, well, who are the companies that Chevron's working with as far as, um, you know, drilling companies goes. So if I'm a big drilling company, I want to know, okay, well, what competitors in the market have relationships with one another. Now, and even if I'm a petroleum-based company, I want to know who are my competitors working with, so I get the most competitive price in the drilling stage there. So, having a look over here, borehole operator. Okay, we can have a look at that. Is the borehole operator different to the company drilled by and the leaseholder? And then have a look at the lease release years there, or rig release years, I should say. Um, and then this here, the average of depth reference and average of start depth, average of water depth. So these are all drilling targets here. So that's basically to sort of say, okay, um, if it's quite, if the average of the start depth is quite deep, then it's probably more likely than not a lease that's a fair way sort of offshore. It's not shallow water based drilling. It's more deep water. So, that's if you're a seismic company, for example, you would that would probably be like a boat-based seismic deep water surveying geospatial type job. But if you look at the average water depth and it's a bit shallow, it might be shallow seismic, which is shallow surveying. And then if we're looking at, not in water at all, which is what I would expect with onshore. See, there's no average of water depth there on onshore. Then you're looking at, um, you know, more onshore-based surveying with a um, different sort of system again there. Okay, so that kind of just gives a bit of with a vibe, I should say. So onshore seismic surveying with a vibe. So that kind of gives you a bit of an outline there as to sort of how this market kind of works, and a couple of different kind of ideas as to where this information would be useful across a couple of different markets there, drilling, petroleum based leaseholders, in addition to surveying in the seismic aspect, which is something that we'll get to in later based videos. I want to look at issue year here. I can look at different periods of time when these leases were issued. If I want to go by basin, you can go down here to the canning. Okay, what's been shot in the canning? What has been drilled in the canning over time? What has happened in the Carnarvon Basin? Okay, and what about the Perth Basin? So I've got all this information here. I can pinpoint who are the big players in the market in what period of time throughout Western Australia history in petroleum. Okay, coming over to this next dashboard here, we've got Western Australia total number of leases expiring from 1974 to 2031. Okay, so here, these are all the total registered holders here for each year by expiry year. Okay, so these are all the leases that are expiring in each particular year via the total registered leaseholders in Western Australia. Okay, so if we're looking over here, okay, we had 18 there, so that would suggest that 70s was pretty strong within this region. Late 70s, we sort of started to drop a little bit with the number of expiring leases, which means that businesses or the petroleum industry were holding their leases for longer periods of time throughout sort of this period. And then as we get here into the 2000s, we start to see a few little drops here. Um, we see a lot more leases here, and then we see less leases expire, and then a lot more leases up here. So I think, when we see bigger leases expire, it shows that period prior to this was quite high in exploration, with a lot of businesses sort of really trying to pinpoint and exploration activities in each particular basin, which would then bring me to the next point over here. What basin are we looking at? So if we're looking at Perth Basin, okay, you can see that there's, it's quite up and down, not a lot of players in that market over time. But if I go to the Northern Carnarvon, we can really sort of see here, okay, um, these are the years here when a lot of the leases were expiring, okay. Um, oh, this is for offshore. So I go here and go all. Okay, so this is both onshore and offshore here now. If I just want to go to just, um, if I want to go just onshore, it would sort of look like this. Okay, so this period here, early 2000s, exploration was probably quite high, um, and then from there we started to see a lot of registered holders with their licenses expiring. Now, if I want to go here next, okay, so we're just going to go onshore here, basin, we're just going to go all status here next, okay, so I can go through this and I can look at, okay, suspended, water, drilled, completed, abandoned, and so forth, okay, and that just gives me a little bit more insight there as to what companies fit into these particular categories. But if I'm just looking here, I can just click on the dot here. This will tell me, okay, what eight, leases expired within this particular year, and what was the history there. So I can come across here and I can go, okay, current status is it's surrendered, expired, renewed, pending renewal, expired. I can have a bit of a look there. Okay, I can link that up with the drilling to get a bit more understanding again there. I can link it up with seismic data to work out what's happened in that particular market. All right, and the last dashboard here that we're looking at for today is the number of fields by basin in Western Australia. So we currently have 172 in the Northern Carnarvon. So if I click on Northern Carnarvon, that's 172. Okay, well, that's how many we've sort of had in history, I should say, since the start of this data set. But if I want to look at who's producing, because this is what we want to know. We want to know who's producing, and we want to know who are these 42 producing in the Northern Carnarvon in the petroleum-based industry. Okay, and then I can have a look here, exploration permit. So who's exploring? Okay, Santos exploring, but they've got with an exploration permit, but they're also producing here. So that's kind of interesting. These are bigger leases here, and it looks like they've had them for quite a long time. Okay, petroleum lease. Okay, I can have a look down here. Okay, Chevron. Okay, producing, and I can just go through production, license. Okay, Santos again, then retention, Sky Resources. Okay, and I can sort of just work out there who's got what in each particular basin. Okay, and that's kind of the power of having this interactive dashboard with real-time analysis is at any given time, what the other players in the market are doing and where they're going and how they are moving. All right. And I've got gas here, and then OG. So I think, I'd have to check the acronyms there as to what each means, but I can use that to identify what petroleum they're using as well. Okay. So that's producing. If I want to look at shut in next, I can see, who's sort of shut in here in North Carnarvon. Okay, Sky Resources got a lot shut in. These are the sites here that Santos has shut in. So they've shut in a couple here. Double Island is one sort of note. Harriet, again, Court, North Alkimos, Durka, Rose, okay, and I can see the issue year and expiry year down here, okay, and that just gives me a bit of an idea again, okay, what's sort of being worked on. And then I go, okay, well, what's been suspended in the Northern Carnarvon here, okay, and then I can see what Chevron has had here suspended, undeveloped, Okay, so I wanted to go undeveloped here. I can sort of have a bit of a look through here and go, okay, what's undeveloped? Where's there an opportunity? Let's go Canning, because Canning's a pretty underexplored basin compared to Perth and Northern Carnarvon. So I can go down here and have a bit of a look and go, okay, the air energy there. They've got a lease down here that's in a field, Yallaroo, 14 years on that lease. They issued in 2015 all the way through to 2019, and that's EP 493. Okay, and they've also got two other fields here on that particular lease. So that just kind of gives me a bit of insight there as to what's happening at any given point in the petroleum-based industry in WA. If you like this video, guys, be sure to hit the subscribe button or give me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.